The Open Brethren, sometimes called Christian Brethren, are a group of Protestant Evangelical Christian churches that arose in the late 1820s as part of the Assembly Movement. They originated in Ireland before spreading throughout the British Isles, and now have an estimated 26,000 assemblies worldwide. The Open Brethren form independent, autonomous assemblies, and the name Open is given to them to distinguish them from exclusive brethren, with whom they share historical roots. The division of the Plymouth Brethren into the Open Brethren and Exclusive Brethren took place in 1848. Open Brethren are also commonly known as Plymouth Brethren, especially in North America. Many Open Brethren outside of North America, however, are unwilling to use the Plymouth Brethren designation because it is associated with the Exclusive Brethren, particularly the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, which has often been accused of being a cult and has attracted a considerable degree of unfavorable publicity in the media. The Brethren are committed to missionary work and hold that the Bible is the first authority in matters of faith and practice. Each assembly is independent of the others in doctrinal matters, yet there is a high degree of communication and cooperation among those who share similar doctrine and practice. Open Brethren assemblies form a continuum from tight gatherings which extend fellowship only to those who have first left other denominations, to very loose gatherings which receive into fellowship any stranger without question. A building associated with a group of Open Brethren is usually called a gospel chapel, gospel hall, Bible chapel, Christian assembly, or other similar term. A subset of the Open Brethren of the Gospel Hall assemblies who tend to be more conservative than the fellow brethren in the practices. Theologically, however, they differ very little. History. The separation of the independent or Open Brethren from the Exclusive Brethren occurred when John Nelson Darby denounced Benjamin Wills Newton, an elder of the Plymouth Assembly, at the time the largest of the Brethren assemblies, over disagreements concerning prophecy and church organization. Darby forced him to admit to theological errors, then attacked George Muller and Henry Craik at Bethesda Chapel in Bristol for accepting two others of that assembly, even though they were not implicated in any of Newton's errors. This led to a separation of Bethesda from Darby and a clear adoption of an independent congregational stance by many of the assemblies. The statement of the assembly at Tottenham gives clearly the position of the Open Brethren. We welcome to the table, on individual grounds, each saint, not because he or she is a member of this or that gathering, a denomination of Christians, nor because they are followers of any particular leader, but on such testimony as commends itself to us as being sufficient. We distinctly refuse to be parties to any exclusion of those who, we are satisfied, are believers, except on grounds personally applying to their individual faith and conduct. The exclusive Darbyites became more and more introverted and mystical as the years passed, while the Open Brethren continued to develop an emphasis on the faith missions pioneered by Anthony Norris Groves in India and George Muller with his orphanages in Bristol. In 1853, they started the first missionary journal, the Missionary Reporter. In 1859, the religious revival which reached Britain had a transforming effect on many of the assemblies and brought in new leaders such as Joseph Denham. Smith. Ulster became one of the strongest centres, and expansion occurred in Scotland and northern England. In London, Thomas John Bernardo began his rescue work with orphans. Dwight L. Moody from Chicago, on a trip to England to visit George Muller and Charles H. Spurgeon, met a young man in a Dublin assembly, Henry Morehouse, who was to profoundly influence his preaching style when he preached at Moody's church, revolutionizing his work as an evangelist. In Barnstable, one of the largest early Brethren assemblies developed from the inspiring example of Robert Cleaver Chapman, who continued continued his ministry until the end of the century. He had made an evangelistic tour of Spain in 1838, and after 1869 the work expanded in Barcelona and Madrid, and also in Portugal. In Italy, an indigenous development by Count Guicciardini linked up with T.P. Rossetti in England. Although the Protestant Brethren faced persecution and imprisonment by the Catholic Church, the movement soon spread with English-speaking emigrants to Australia and New Zealand, as well as to the United States and Canada. Some 600 congregations were recorded in 1959 in the US and 300 in Canada. Increasing diversity. By the middle of the 20th century, a number of streams were becoming apparent within the Open Brethren, especially in North America. A clear line of demarcation appeared between more conservative assemblies, generally known as gospel halls, and the more progressive Bible chapels, with the latter being more receptive to innovations like accompanied music and collaboration with non-Brethren Christians. Robert McClurkin was welcome in both circles, but he complained that the gospel halls were being influenced by literature from the very strict Needed Truth movement, and that a rigid line of demarcation was being drawn. This line was far less pronounced outside of North America. However, in the second half of the 20th century, the Brethren movement diversified further still, especially through cultural adaptations in Third World countries. Examples of this include some assemblies in Papua New Guinea, which began using coconut flesh and milk instead of bread and wine to celebrate Holy Communion. In France, Brethren have established a central committee offering leadership and direction to assemblies that choose to participate, despite the common Brethren aversion to central organizations. While Brethren in Ethiopia have leadership conferences at which some collective decision-making takes place. In Germany, many Brethren assemblies have joined a Joint Brethren Baptist venture which operates a seminary, conference center, youth movement, and missionary organization. In predominantly Muslim Pakistan, some assemblies seat men and women on opposite sides of the room, as in a mosque. When they pray, they do so on their knees.